Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. My name's Jason. I'm your watch guy today. Today I am reviewing a watch that I was rather excited for. Now I'm of course talking about the very popular Kickstarter watch that is the Trafford Watch Co. SOE Roadster. Now you saw me unbox this on the channel. I told you how excited I was about it. These came in on the early bird price at $250, which I think is a bargain for the amount of design that has gone into it, for the storytelling that this watch actually does. If you want to back this Kickstarter, I have left a link in the description. Please go and check that out. I think there's about 3 weeks left on it. Probably 3 weeks. I think it's a month-long campaign. I released the unboxing video on release day, which was last Monday, I believe. It's now Monday. I'd love to say that I'm filming this before Monday, but it's actually now 12:30 in the morning. So, yeah. The things I do for you guys. Without further ado, let me turn this camera around and let's get this watch in front of it. So this is the Trafford SOE Roadster, and this is the green dial variant, otherwise known as the Grover Williams variant. Now I will get into those names in a second, but let's first talk about a couple of numbers, those being the Kickstarter numbers. This has already raised £30,000, $42,000. In 90 minutes, it was fully funded, completely funded, ready to go. They're already on to their first stretch goal, and it's been a week. How impressive is that? That speaks volumes to how well this watch has been received by people who have seen it, people on Facebook, on Instagram, YouTube, everyone. Like, I saw so much hype for this watch when it was in the design phase, and I think Nathan has done an absolutely fantastic job on it. So obviously you'll be wondering what price you can pick one of these up for. Well, they are still available on Kickstarter, and I believe the campaign is for a month. They are now available on the early bird price of $300. For that price, I believe these are completely worth it. You may argue that it's not because it's a quartz movement. However, it's a quartz movement that's actually a Seiko Mecha Quartz movement, Mecha Quartz chronograph movement at that. So it's not exactly a basic quartz watch, and it's very well designed. It's very well spec'd. I think they've done an absolutely fantastic job, and I also am a believer that everyone needs a good quartz watch, and that's what this is. So let me talk to you about the inspiration behind this watch. It's heavily 1930s racing inspired. It's a chronograph, as you can see, which always gives a racing type of feel to it. Now, it has a little bit of a twist. It's a tribute to setting Europe ablaze. The story of three racing drivers: William Grover Williams, Robert Benoist, and Jean-Pierre Wimille. All three racing drivers in the 1930s and leading into the 1940s. They won multiple championships. They won races across the world, across the international circuit, including the likes of Monaco and Le Mans. They were prolific in what they did. Now, this particular watch gains a lot of inspiration from the Bugatti 35B, in which all three drivers at some point in their career drove. Now, they were very successful racing drivers. However, once the war began in 1939, racing had to stop, just like many other sports like football, rugby, anything you can name, golf, everything, all stopped while the war commenced. These three drivers didn't sit back and just wait it out. They were actually called upon by Winston Churchill to use their social connections and taste for adventure to become tools of espionage in the World War. Sounds a bit like James Bond, doesn't it? Well, it's a lot like James Bond, to be fair. They were tasked with, in Churchill's words, setting Europe ablaze, causing chaos in Nazi Germany occupied areas. Now, this watch is a tribute, a celebration to these three men's lives, and I actually think what it does with the design is actually quite smart. In the front, in the viewing aspect, the part that's shown to the entire world, we have this racing type of style, just like in their lives, as a front. as the main spectacle to their lives. They were racing drivers. And on the back here, we have this parachute holding up the banner SOE, standing for Special Operations Executives. And up at the top here, Set Europe Ablaze. And that's hidden in the back in this part that no one sees. You know, it's the hidden part of this watch. I think it's actually quite smart. It's quite an artistic type of flair to this piece. Now, moving on from the story behind this, we move to the actual watch itself. This is, as I said, packed with a quartz movement. It's a Seiko VK64 Mecha Quartz chronograph movement. If you're going to have a quartz watch, a quartz chronograph watch, that's pretty much what you want in there. It's a mechanically based chronograph powered by a quartz movement, basically. I'll just initiate the chronograph here. As you can see, it doesn't tick, it sweeps like a mechanical piece. Just stop it and click it back. Very, very precise and gives that mechanical type of aesthetic to the movement. Now, the watch itself is 40 millimeters in diameter. It is 13.1 millimeters thick. Lug to lug, it's 49.5 millimeters, which is on the larger side for myself. However, this lug size is going to be revised. Nathan said that he's going to shorten lugs and make them a little bit thicker. This wire type of effect lug, I really love these lugs. I really do. It gives that 1930s, 1920s type of vibe to it. It also gives a little bit of a military type of look, I think. The lugs themselves are 20 millimeters. Now, the one downside of many wired lugged watches is that you can't change out the bands on them, but this one's actually quite smart. It's just wired type of lug aesthetic. It's not an actual wired lug, which I think is the smartest route for this watch to go down. Everyone likes to be able to change the band on their watch to whatever they want instead of being stuck with a NATO or what it came on. The SOE Roadster comes in 3 different colours, one for each racing driver. There is a black, there is a blue, and there is this absolutely fantastic green that gives you that little flavour of British racing type of feel. And I love this black racing stripe down the centre. Now that really does set off in the right type of light outdoors. It's a really lovely design to this watch. It gives it the British racing car type of vibe, that type of feeling that you get from the old green Jag type of look. Now, it also comes in 2 options of case finishing. I have the PVD black, which I think is the one to go for with this dial. It also comes in a sandblasted stainless steel, which is also quite nice. I just prefer this black PVD to it. We also have 2 strap options. I believe it comes in this lovely brown or a black strap. Personally, this entire layout, if this was the one that I got gifted by Nathan at the end of the campaign, I'd be happy. This is the one that I want, Nathan. Just so you're aware. You don't have to ask. It is a rather thick casing, as you can see. We also have the bezel that sits on top of the case and a lovely clean edge finish to that. It does have presence on wrist, I'll give it that. We have 2 piston style pushers either side of the crown. These actuate the chronograph function on this watch. I love a chronograph function on a race style watch. I think that's the perfect combination myself. Just stop that and flick it back. The crown has a clean edge finish to it. It is a simple pull push crown. First position for the date, second for the time as per usual. It also is a signed crown. It has the British flag signed onto the centre of the crown. Let's just align that. So yeah, there we go. Now, as we move to the back of the watch, as I mentioned previously, we have this lovely case black that shows a little bit of the story of this watch. We have some information around the edge. It is a screw down case back, and I think it's one of the actual features of the watch, which is strange to say about a case back because you never really see it. Moving on to this bezel, it is a 120 click unidirectional bezel. We have a black ceramic insert on it with white markers. We have 1 to 11 with the triangle at the 12. This is a unidirectional bezel, as I mentioned, and I think this is really what would have been more functional for a race driver. This could have been used in the same way that you'd use a dive bezel. Well, not exactly, but it could have been used to time fuel consumption more than, time air, because they're not underwater, I guess, so they don't need that. This bezel is actually loomed, which is a nice feature once again. It is C3 Swiss Super Luminova. Really easy to use. There is, however, a slight bit of bounce, a slight little bit of play back in this bezel. It won't bother me too much, to be fair. It's not so much that I'd complain about it, it's just so much that I'd mention it. Moving to the sapphire crystal, and this one is slightly domed sapphire crystal. As you can see there, we have AR coating on it, which is also a nice feature. This casing provides this watch with 100 meters of water resistance, which is pretty standard. In fact, it's probably generous for this style of watch. You'd usually expect a sports watch around 50. Now, obviously, the best feature of this watch, as it should be, is the dial. We have this pair of lovely black racing stripes down the dial. I'm trying to catch in the same light that I get outside. It's absolutely gorgeous, the effect that this gives to the dial. I think it's because it's a subdued, sort of duller type of green. Well, not dull, but darker type of green to it. And the black kind of fades in certain lights. And then when it hits the light perfectly, it just shines to you. There is a gloss type of effect to the rest of the dial, that matte stripe through the centre. Now, we have applied indices at the hour markers. They have a stainless steel effect to them, a polished stainless steel effect to them. At the tips of each, we have a little loom pip. I will show you that loom in just a moment. Completing the outer edge of the dial, we have the minute markings printed onto the dial, and in between those, we have really nice scattered type of nanosecond markings, which is, again, very nice. Gives a real racing type of flavour to the watch. On the chaptering of this one, we have a tachymeter, which again, very much a racing type of vibe. That is something that you would expect to see on a race style watch, on any sort of car themed chronograph. Now, the nice thing about this one is that it's also completed with the rotating bezel, which is another nice feature. So we have sort of two different functions in that chronograph there. In the initial renderings of these watches, the thing that I really loved about them, the design of them that I loved, was this 24-hour dial. And there's a really lovely little splash of colour with that red hand in the centre. The 24 printed in the middle, I think, is absolute genius. I mean, it really does just harp to the 24 at Le Mans. It's a very outspoken part of the dial, and it's even sat on a pronounced dial, a sub-dial that is placed on top of the dial itself. So it has a little bit of depth. In fact, this entire watch has plenty of depth. As you can see, the dial sits very low in the watch with that chaptering making up the gap there, which is a really lovely design feature. Over here on the other side, we have the chronograph function, the minute functions from the chronograph hands. Again, I'll just activate that for you. Really love how precise this chronograph feels. That's the type of feeling that you get from any Seiko Mecha Quartz chronograph. That's why I'm a bit of a fan of them. Plus the fact they keep chronograph costs rather low, so they can do a lot of other things for the budget. Down at the 6 o'clock here, we have the date window, which is placed in a circular fashion. I like date windows at 6 o'clock. I think that they're out of the way and help the design of the watch flow more. This one is very pronounced, as it's got a red date wheel on it. Not something that you often see. Now, it goes really well with the other splashes of colour throughout the dial. I say the dial, I mean the handset, the chronograph second hand, and the 24-hour hand. Now, that's another little subtle mention to our three heroes. In terms of racing, a lot of drivers would have red tape on certain parts of the dials on their car to mark where it would overheat or where the revs would hit when they needed to change gear, etc, etc. Now, another little note to their lives is actually operatives of Espionage would use a red pen to leave messages or notes for each other. Something as simple as highlighting a date in a newspaper or some numbers in a newspaper, leaving it on a cafe table in red. And that's how they would pass messages to each other often enough. So two nice subtle notes that bring us back to our heroes who our watch here is commemorating. Either side of that date window, we have a little printed British design, which is always nice. I really do love having watches in that give me that sort of patriotic feeling to them. Up at the 12 o'clock, we have the Trafford Watch Co. logo, and just above the date window, we have the S.O.E. Roadster printed in white. And even the fonts of those two prints go really well with the design of the watch. I just think so much of this watch has really nailed it. And the design cues really go with the aesthetics of the watch, and everything sort of adds, nothing's really taken away. Now we move to this handset. It is a simple baton handset. We have the red chronograph hand there, which stands out very well to this green dial. These two baton hands are surrounded in black and loomed. Now let me get this loom shot ready for you. I'm going to turn off these lights and get the UV torch out. Just charge our loom shot up a little bit here so we can show you how nice this looks fully loomed. As you can see, the bezel, the little dots on the dial and the handset are all loomed, which is really nice. I really love it when a bezel is loomed. I think that's a really nice feature of a watch. And it's not something that many manufacturers do at the moment, but I think a lot more are catching on to that type of feel. I just think it's a sign of quality. It's a sign of caring about the design of your watch. So as we move away from the head of this watch, we move to this really lovely leather rally style strap. And what else would you pair with a racing chronograph, especially one that is 1930s, 1940s inspired? I just think there's no better combination. The buckle on this one is matched to the PVD case, and it has the Trafford logo printed on it. We have some really nice stitching down this brown leather and these rally style holes. Now there's one thing left for me to do before this moan section, and that is of course a wrist shot. This has been an absolute pleasure to wear for the last week, and I can't wait for my own one to show up. A note on that, they expect deliveries to start around August, I believe. I believe that's in the Kickstarter also. Let me pop this on wrist and show you how good it looks. Here is the Trafford SOE Roadster on wrist. As you can see, it is a really nice fit. It'll be even nicer when the changes are made to those lugs. I think a slightly shorter lug to lug would be beneficial to this watch, but I just think the aesthetics overall are very pleasing. So what are my complaints on this watch? Because obviously I'm quite taken by it. I actually really like it. Well, first would be these lugs. However, they are being changed. Is going to make them thicker and shorter, which is what I would have said in the first place, so I can't really complain about that now. Another thing to mention is this bezel again. It does play slightly. There's a little bit of back bounce in it, but not an incredible amount. Not enough that it's going to ruin the watch, just again enough for me to mention it. And finally, the ceramic bezel has a very lovely gloss effect to it. The dial has a very lovely gloss effect to it. But it does make this watch a little bit of a fingerprint magnet. So be aware of that. Personally, I don't really mind. I'll just wipe it with my t-shirt when I'm wearing it. But to a lot of people, that's slightly off-putting. Personally, it is what it is. I think Nathan has done something really special with his first release, and to be honest, I can't wait to get one of these for myself, and I can't wait to see what he does next, because if this is the level that Trafford Watch Co are going to produce, then I want to see every single one of them. So guys, that is the Trafford SOE Roadster, available right now on Kickstarter. Now, I forgot to mention this in the intro. Nathan has generously offered to gift me one of these when the full release goes out, when the production models go out. So that's why you would have seen the little paid promotion thing at the beginning. Obviously, he hasn't paid me to make this review, but he is giving me one of these watches, which, you know, is YouTube kind of class of payment. So yeah, that's why it's there. I personally will be picking this exact same model because I think it's absolutely gorgeous. I think it's just nailed every single aesthetic I would like it to nail. So yeah, I'm very happy with this. Now, if you wanted to pick one up, as I say, it's available on Kickstarter right now at $300. Links in the description for that one. Obviously, as it being a Kickstarter campaign, the price will gradually increase throughout that the more people that back it. It is at $42,000 at the minute, and the next stretch goal is 50,000. So at that stretch goal, I believe they are going to release a red dial that has another driver's story. It's actually really, really nice, but I just don't see anything beating this one for me. This is just absolutely gorgeous. I love that racing green. Thank you for watching this video, guys. I will be back very soon with some more. Please remember to subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the next one.